Here we are at the executive assessment sample questions, the free sample set of problems that you can engage with at MBA.com for this unique MBA application exam. Now, what we're looking at here is a critical reasoning style question. And whenever you engage with a critical reasoning style question, you're going to set up your scratch pad first for process of elimination, and you're going to skip over the introductory paragraph and just identify what you're being asked to do. And in this case, we're looking for the main point of the editorial's argument is that nation X something happens. So we're going to just set up A, B, C, D, E here for process of elimination. And the main point of any argument is going to be its conclusion. So we must identify what the conclusion is for this argument. And when you see these critical reasoning questions, there's generally going to be somewhere between 2 to 4 of them in either of the 7 question halves of the executive assessment. What you need to do is focus mostly on that conclusion anytime you're being asked to do something, whether it's strengthen, weaken, identify a flaw, identify a conclusion, identify an assumption with an argument. So the way that you can identify a conclusion is by recognizing that the conclusion is whatever needs support. And that's generally going to be an opinion or a recommendation that wouldn't stand on its own without additional evidence. So I'm going to just put PC here for predicted conclusion. And we're basically going to go through this editorial identifying facts, which we know cannot be the conclusion because they can stand on their own, versus opinions that might be the conclusion if they end up being what everything else in the paragraph is basically leading to. So, starting with the editorial, although Nation X has been gaining in population, the number of annual visitors to its national parks has steadily declined over the past 20 years. Well, that's just a statement of fact. It cannot be our conclusion. You don't want to get into a semantic battle or, like, say whether or not I would believe this claim. It really is just a statistic, and we're not going to argue with statistics that are presented based on facts within the construct of a critical reasoning question on the executive assessment. Then we've got some commentators have attributed this trend to people's growing absorption in television and video games. Now, if I told you that Bill thinks it's going to rain, that's not my position. That's not my conclusion. That's me simply reporting Bill's position that Bill thinks it's going to rain. Similarly, whenever you have an argument that is reporting some other opinion, that other opinion is being presented as a fact, not as a conclusion for that argument itself. So here we simply have the position of some other commentators, but this second sentence is not either the conclusion itself. So then, taking a look at the next sentence, it says, but this explanation is implausible. Okay, well, if I just tell you that I don't believe somebody, I need reasoning. So this right here very well may be our main conclusion, but we're going to read the whole paragraph just to be sure. And it reads at the end, the number of visitors to national parks rose during earlier decades, even as the popularity of television and video games grew rapidly. Well, that again is just a statement of fact. So our predicted conclusion is that the commentator explanation that we'll just have an up arrow TV and VG for video games equals a decrease in NP for national park visitors is not plausible. And the key to most, if not all, of the verbal questions on the executive assessment is forcing engagement through prediction, whether it's predicting what the right answer should be for a reading comprehension question, for a sentence correction, or here with critical reasoning. So taking our red color, we're going to work through the answer choices and compare them against our predicted conclusion that these commentators explaining that it's an increase in television and video game absorption that's causing the national park visitors to go down isn't actually plausible. So, choice A, some commentators have attributed the decline in visitors to national parks to people's growing absorption in television and video games. That's not the conclusion, that's just the other opinion. Thanks for watching this executive assessment explanation video. If you're enjoying the tips it contains, please consider liking it and potentially subscribing to this channel to be alerted when additional videos such as this are released by my guru. Also, check out the description below as it includes a link to our full executive assessment prep course produced with our partners at Analyst Prep. For now, let's get back to this video. Then choice B, the number of annual visitors to national parks has steadily declined over the past 20 years, even though the national population has grown. Well, again, this is just a fact, and therefore not our opinionated conclusion. We can eliminate B immediately. Then, choice C, people's growing absorption in television and video games does not plausibly explain the decline in visitors to national parks over the past 20 years. Ding, ding, ding. That is exactly what we expected. And on the exam, you really may just move forward at this point when you found something that matches your prediction so perfectly. But for the purposes of this video, we will work through the remaining options. Choice D, the number of visitors to national parks rose during earlier decades, even as the popularity of television and video games grew rapidly. Again, that's just a fact. It is not the opinion that functions as the main conclusion. And then choice E, many people who have been increasingly absorbed in television and video games have nonetheless continued to visit national parks. Well, this isn't even stated. This is an inference that may or may not be true. So that is possible, but not certain. Whereas the conclusion for all of our executive assessment, critical reasoning style problems, arguments, they are going to always be explicitly stated. It can't just be something that is inferred or implicit. So you can see how the correct answer here becomes C, and hopefully you can apply this approach as you practice more critical reasoning questions involving arguments on your own.